Hello, guys. I'm just going to speak for a few seconds just to know whether the system is working, whether the streaming is working fine. I just want to check to see whether there are no tech issues, no hassles, any which way. Whether you can hear what I'm saying clearly enough, and then we'll jump in and start talking about mocks. I want to keep this as a reasonably short session. We've done a bunch of sessions on cat preparation. Yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of people saying waiting and all that. We were just stuck with a few minor tech glitches, but I think we're good to go now. And I hope you can see me clearly. If everything is fine, we'll jump in and start discussing. And so we'll talk about how to take mocks, how to analyze mocks, how many mocks should I take before CAT exam, etc., 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 etc. Fine. So I'm going to start with how to take mocks. Fine. So um, each mock separately you should take as intensely as possible. That is very important. I've taken CAT many times. I've taken a bunch of mocks when I first took my mocks. These days, even if I go and take CAT at the end of the exam, I'm dead tired. You cannot be fresh and happy at the end of a mock. That means you've not thrown everything into the mock. The entire mock exercise is to get the feel for the exam, for taking the exam to become second nature. And so that simply does not work if you're not taking it intensely. So you need to crank up the intensity. You need to make sure that your concentration drops. Your the number of times your mind goes for a walk, mind starts wandering, all of that come down as close to zero as possible. It's never going to be zero, but the entire idea of taking mocks is to condition yourself to 3 hours of intensity. And so the one thing which is absolutely not negotiable is intensity. It is very crucial to maintain that. Mock taking is sometimes dispiriting. You'll have occasions in mocks where you'll take a section and you'll tell yourself, oh, this mock is done, so I don't care about the other two sections. You need to pick up the ability to hang in there and take the second and the third section. If one section goes awry, you need to hang in and do and complete the mock. This is about being intense and being disciplined enough to pull it off. So it is the most important thing, especially for the first few mocks, is to not let your intensity drop. And you need to be at it for 3 hours. You need to not switch off and say, I think this mock is gone, or I'm doing really well, I'll play it safe, or say I have done 1 hour, I'll put pause, come back again and take the remaining two sections. And none of that. When through your ups and downs, you fight that battle and take it well. The second important thing about mock is to have some amount of discipline over a mock schedule. And so motivating yourself to take mocks is difficult. So make sure that you don't require motivation. And so you shouldn't find the need for inspiration to take a mock. And you should basically say, okay, there's a mock going on now, I'm going to take it. I'm sitting here at 9 o'clock, I'm going to take a mock. You should be ready to take a mock at the drop of a hat. You should have taken enough mocks, enough number of times that taking mocks becomes second nature, and you should reduce this barrier for mental preparedness. Right? And should crank up your discipline. Should say every Sunday evening 5 to 8, I'm taking a mock. Every fortnight I'm taking a mock, and then I'll crank it up and take more and more. And so the overall mock planning schedule is about discipline. Each mock is about intensity. If I have to drive one word for the mock schedule, it is discipline. One word for each mock, it is intensity. When you're in a mock, you're in it completely. When otherwise, there's no point taking a mock. Mocks are about temperamental soundness. You've got to say, look, I'm going to hang in there. I'm going to hang in there. Things are not going well, but I'm going to hang in there. To give you a parallel, in this World Cup, there was this the Sri Lankan player called, I think, Angelo Matthews, who was struggling. He just couldn't time, but he hung in there and scored 80 odd. And then they ended up winning that match. And so things are not going your way, hang in there, make it work. And that temperamental soundness is what you're doing the mocks for. Very vital, very crucial. So don't let that go. The overall mock number and the mock count is about discipline. When do I take every Sunday, every Saturday, every Friday? Keep it like that. And each mock is about intensity. Overall mock schedule. Fine. So start your mock planning very early. By very early, I mean now. Fine. So you need to have a ramp up plan. You probably need to say, look, I'm going to take a mock once every 10 days now in July. July, I'm going to do 3 mocks. In August, I'll do 4. In September, I'll do 5. In October, I'll do 6. In November, I'll do 8 or 9. So you need to ramp up your mock taking, but start now. What is the advantage of starting now? You condition your mind for the discipline aspect, for the temperament aspect, for the intensity aspect. And so another challenge which many students face during mocks is the inability to leave questions. And you simply don't become unhappy when you leave questions. But the power in mocks is about leaving the right questions. And so make sure that you get happy leaving questions. It takes 3-4 mocks to just get happy leaving questions. Do not let a poor mock have a hangover on you. Do not get drained out after a good section or dispirited, completely gone after a bad section. To conquer those battles, it takes 4 or 5 mocks. And so you've got to give your mind the time to conquer all of these. Don't wait to finish your syllabus. So if anybody is saying I want to put a schedule for mocks, about 3 in July, 4 in August, 5 in September, 6 in October, 8 in November, that works. Fine. So never take back-to-back mocks. Don't take mocks every day. Thumb rule for analyzing mocks: you should spend at least as much time analyzing a mock as you took taking them. So that is 3 hours minimum, bare minimum. Sometimes I'll say that for the first few mocks, you need 6 to 7 hours to analyze. I'm going to do a separate bit on mock analysis, but that is a thumb rule. Schedule of mocks, ramp it up. Do not wait to complete syllabus. There is no such thing as completing syllabus. You started preparing for CAT, you've completed 70% of the syllabus. You know how to read, you know how to add 3 numbers, you can think logically and solve some puzzles. You can answer 30 out of 34 questions in verbal. You can attempt 20 of 32 questions in DALR, assuming there's no time pressure. There's no theory. Out of 34 in quant, you probably have a general way of approaching 10 or 12 of them. So 60% of questions, suppose you were given 12 hours to attempt a CAD paper, I'm reasonably confident that everybody will be able to attempt 60 of those questions. Try, keep trying. You may not even get it right, but you can do it. So you've already covered 60% of the syllabus when you start thinking about CAD. Think like that. So don't wait to complete syllabus and then start taking mocks. That idea doesn't work. That's just going to put another stumbling block in mock taking. You need to remove as many obstacles to mock taking as possible. You need to beat down inertia. You need to make sure you don't procrastinate. You need to make sure that a high or a low does not derail you. You need to make sure that you never give up after one section. All of these, you need to lower the bar for taking mock. You need to take so many mocks that a damn mock is not such a big deal. You need to reach that point and then crank up intensity one more time. Keep that in mind. Fine. Now, how to analyze mocks? According to me, there are 3 takeaways that you should look to get when you're analyzing mocks. The first one is question selection. And this is pivotal. This is very important. You need to more or less say, take a section and say, I'll find 3 questions that I should not have attempted that I ended up attempting. You remove these 3, automatically that means you can find 3 or 4 more. Right? So there's an interesting chart in many mock analysis, which gives you the time spent for overall that you've spent on questions that you got right, questions that you got wrong, and questions that you did not attempt. Generally, for most people, the question that you got right is only about 50% tops. Right? So that means half of that 3 hours you've ended up wasting in questions that you did not answer after you spent time on, or you answered incorrectly. Fine. So if you beat that down and you crank that up, crank that efficiency up, your score will go places. Fine. So being good in computation, in math, having reading speed and being brilliant in finding patterns is like being good at having the right technique for batting or bowling. Right? So Alan Donald had a beautiful run up, and he could deliver wonderfully quick deliveries, which swung. Fine. But the best bowler in the South African lineup was Sean Pollock, who was also gifted. And so Mark Waugh had all the time in the world. Steve Waugh was a gritty batsman, but the best finisher in that team was Michael Bevan. And so the guys who you want to be there in the crunch are not necessarily the most talented ones. Are the guys who can manipulate things, who are very savvy, who understand their strengths, who assess the pitch well, the exam well, know what target they are going for. That kind of people. So you need to add that exam savvy to to your your kind of repertoire. So make sure that you add that layer by layer. The most important aspect is that of question selection. And so this is something that students don't spend enough time on. They either attend questions in order or go through the entire paper and then mark questions to do. Neither is very efficient. You need to be dynamic about question selection. Very important. So you need to have a thumb rule and say these topics I like, these style of questions I don't like, and then keep going away. You need to leave a lot of questions and time yourself in such a way that you're there or thereabouts towards the end of the paper by the time you're in the last 4 minutes or 5 minutes. And that's very crucial, very important. So make sure your question selection method is like that. You simply cannot say, I went till question number 14 in quant. I attempted 11 of them. I got all of them right. That means you've not seen more than half the paper. This happens very frequently to a lot of students. So you should be happy leaving and you should work aggressively, consciously on question selection. Those of you who follow cricket, you should see how the best chasers work. They'll count out overs from the top bowlers, leave them aside, and then bash up the fourth or fifth bowler. So they know what is coming. Fine. So you need to allocate like that. You need to plan where your marks are going to come from. There's no point, absolutely no point, trying to hit. If you're facing India, you should basically not go after Bumrah. You should think about going after Hardik Pandya. So you know where your score is going to come from and what you should stay away from. That's very important. Fine. So make sure you pick up that exam savvy. Most of things that I mean by exam savvy is ability to select questions, ability to leave questions. So the first step is to isolate 3 or 4 questions that you should not have attempted and add 4 or 5 that you would have attempted if you had not gone after this. You'll realize if you do this exercise religiously for 8-9 mocks, your question selection will go up by leaps and bounds. And just by picking better questions, you can double your mock scores. Right? So work on it very aggressively. The second thing is the learning gap. I find too many students getting thrilled by seeing pie charts and graphs and percentiles and all that, and not really bothering to fill the learning gaps. Take it from me, the mocks have the best questions. Without doubt, the mocks have the best questions. Whichever mocks you take, the mocks have the best questions. And every time you do a mock and you go through the solutions in the mock, then you learn something. Where a beautiful catch is there, where some wonderful trap is there, you learn some idea. So review from a learning point of view. Keep strategy aside and then review stuff that you got wrong, stuff that you did not attempt, and then stuff that you got right, in that order, so that you learn and fill the gaps. The final thing is strategy. Where am I getting tired? Where is fatigue playing a role? How did I mark this choice when I definitely know that it is wrong? Am I chasing geometry while I should have been going towards arithmetic? Am I just going after the wrong topics? Is that what my time per correct answer is telling me? Is my error rate out of whack in this topic? That kind of analysis. Overall 10,000 feet view. Fine. So first up, question elimination. Second is learning gap. Third is overall strategy. Every mock analysis should have these 3 components. What should I have left that I ended up getting suckered into? That is number 1. Number 2, what am I learning? What is my learning gap? Why did I not get this right? How did I forget tangent secant theorem? Number 3, which topics am I good and which am I bad at? What should I worry about my overall strategy? That is how you analyze a mock. Be methodical, be religious. And how many mocks should I take before CAT exam? My benchmark, at least 15, but you could go as high as 30, 35. Anything upwards of that, I don't think it's required, because you take a mock every 3rd day, every 4th day. There's a 4-month plan for 30 mocks, 35 mocks. You don't need a more aggressive plan like that. You don't just increase your mock count without spending sufficient time in analysis. 15 to 30 is a good benchmark. Aim for that. Be disciplined. Maintain a schedule. And so, coming back to the theme of question selection, which I've forgotten one idea. You're not really keep your algorithm for selection around elimination, not around selection. I used to have rules which were based on my favorite topics, and I used to say anything in geometry, I'll go after it. And then after some experience, I kept my rules based on the topics that I hate. I'll say anything in coordinate geometry, I'll leave. And remember, an easy question that you leave won't hurt you that much. A tough question that you get suckered into will bury you. When you'll do that tough question and spend 6 7 minutes on it, not get it right, be under pressure for the next one. If that also turns out to be tough, then you're running in and marking a choice because you want to have this feeling for marking something inside. Fine. So you mark a B or a C, that could be wrong. So there'll be an 8 minute spell in your exam where you've got -1 mark. You translate that into a +7 or +8, you're through. Fine. So don't have rules. Don't say I'm the king of number systems. I'll do everything in number systems. Say I just don't get permutation probability. I won't touch anything from there. That works. You can have rules. A long question, I'm not touching. 3 charts, I'm not touching. 4 variables, I'm not touching. X cube, I'm not touching. Have rules for not touching. Exponents and logarithm, I don't want. Trigonometry key equation, I don't like. Have rules for staying away from questions. Don't have heavy rules for falling into questions. Be very careful about that. Right. So these are the broad things on mock schedule, mock discipline, and tell of what you should look for in a mock about question selection. Fine. So I'm going to go slightly deeper and say what is the takeaway you're looking for in terms of when you're doing a set of mocks, in terms of what should you read from your scores. Fine. So you should have a general sense of having control over how many questions you can attempt, improving your attempt rate. Don't worry too much about percentiles. And percentile numbers are good. They give you a good idea of where you stand, where you're headed, because in the end it's a competitive exam. But they're not super reliable. They're inconsistent very often, and none of the mock providers has really cracked the CAT exam, that they have such a wonderful mock that mimics the CAT exactly. Nobody has. And I think the guys in the industry will be the first to accept that and admit that. And so don't worry too much about your percentiles. For every guy who scored 99 consistently in these mocks and ended up with 99 in the exam, there are 5 guys for whom it has gone both ways. The guys who have never got more than 95 in any of the mocks, but ended up with a 99.2. And guys who have always got 99 and ended up with a 95.4. Both ways, the error happens. Don't agonize over your percentiles. And so, now what if my mock scores are very low? They're very low. Then you need to ramp up multiple variables. You need to learn and boost fundamentals. You need to become better at selecting questions. You need to ramp up intensity. When intensity in the exam can give you a 40% boost, that's something that you need to be very conscious of hard booting. Question selection can boost it by 40%. And then fundamentals just give you more confidence and comfort level when you're tackling any given thing. And so your fundamentals, again, to talk about a parallel, your fundamentals is what is the skill set that you have in tackling any bowler, any delivery. Right? So your overall strategy, how well you are at selecting questions, is given the 50 overs, your ability to say where are my runs going to come from. Could be a batsman who has nothing to do. You cannot score at more than 4 an over with 2 bowlers, but you can destroy the other 2. You hang in there, wait for the overs from the other 2, and have a strike rate of 7 runs per over. If you're that person, then you need to be savvy, confident, temperamentally sound to chase that. And that is very vital. So you need to acquire that layer of exam savvy, being very ready about what your play is, what your strategy is, where your marks are going to come from, how you will merrily, happily skip questions. And that part is very vital. So if your scores are low, ramp up all 3 variables. Make sure you crank up intensity inside the exam. Make sure you consciously, aggressively work on question selection. Make sure you revisit fundamentals, topics, theory, drill, practice, the actual learning part. Right? My mock scores are not too low. They're inconsistent. They're volatile. I go up and down, up and down, up and down. Up and down happens because you're taking too many chances. And so you're basically, your level is 70, and you're taking punts. You're answering few more questions, taking guesses. One day, a bunch of your guesses fall in place. You end up with a 94. One day, all your guesses go awry, and you end up with a 45. And so, don't be that person. If your scores are volatile, you need to dial down your attempts. You need to dial down your frenzy mode. the speed at which you're multiplying, dividing. You need to read slower. You need to become calmer about handling each question. You can be intense and relaxed. That's your aim. You can be intense on a question to question basis and relax at an overall exam level so that there's no stress. And so if you, those of you who watch sports, you can see that the best guys, they don't leave intensity. Their mind is freakishly switched on, but they're very open to opportunity. They're very relaxed, so their mind is switched on to pick up some freebie that comes their way, and they're not always a bundle of energy. They're not operating in a frenzy. They seem to be working in a bubble, but they're intense. And that's the mix you need to get. You need to be relaxed at an overall paper level, but intense on a question to question basis. And it's very crucial to pick that skill set, and that is very vital for keeping your error rate under control. Because if you're overly intense, you'll set an ambitious target for yourself and attempt that many questions. Fine. All of you who are taking mocks, don't go in with a hard target for number of attempts. If you say, look, I'm quant section, I will attempt 24. You can attempt 24. All you need to do is mark B for all 24. And so you will end up chasing attempts, and subconsciously your mind will ask you to do faster and faster. That's where the errors creep in. And so don't operate with a very defined, clear target in mind. It's good to have broad ideas, but be flexible. And it's like saying you go on bat only after you've done 10 overs do you realize whether it's a 320 wicket or a 220 wicket. Chasing 300 score in a 220 wicket can get you all out for 145. You need to have the sense to say, okay, this paper is not as easy as I thought it would be, so I need to recalibrate. Or this is a freebie, I need to nail this. And so you need to be able to recalibrate during the exam. So don't go in with a hard target for number of attempts. If your scores are volatile, the clearest, easiest indicator is that your risk level, the risk you're taking in the exam is higher. You're basically attempting a bunch of questions that you have no business going near. And very often when you're taking mocks, there is a target accuracy level that everybody wants to know. They keep saying, I've attempted 70 questions, I'm expecting 80% accuracy. There is no such thing as expecting 80% accuracy. If you're doing quant and DALR, if you're attempting a question, you're expecting it to be right. If you don't expect it to be right, you have no business going near it. The expected level of accuracy for quant and DALR is 100%. Always and ever 100%. If you're not confident of an answer, you get the answer as 4, you mark 4. You can't get the answer of 3.8 and mark 4. It could be 7. You've done something wrong. Right? In verbal, you can't take an approach where you will mark it only if you're 100% sure. It's still an objective paper, but there's a certain element of uncertainty about the verbal dimension. Therefore, you can have some amount of error rate. But if your error rate is more than 50% in verbal in any paper, then you're going about it the wrong way. And you need to dial down your reading speed. You need to agonize more about the last two choices and narrow it down after spending that extra 30 seconds, 45 seconds to make sure your error rate is under control. If you don't have that, then you're in trouble. Accuracy level you should be going for is 100% in quant and DILR and about 75-80% in verbal. With some exam at least where you're hitting 90% accuracy in verbal. Otherwise, if your scores are volatile, it is basically saying you're taking too much risk. You're being Shahid Afridi when you should aim to be Virat Kohli. You need to have a certain percentage that you confidently nail, and you can't increase your risk so much that you're just throwing your bat about everything. It doesn't work. Your mocks are supposed to build the discipline and the consistency. And so do become that person who's not chasing, who's not going after everything, who's not in a frenzy. Your mocks are supposed to build the discipline for that. Right? The other question I get frequently is how many mocks you should take. And sorry, one more question which I saw which was interesting. How important is taking mocks? Very, very, very crucial. If you have time pressure and you can't finish the syllabus and take mocks, dump the syllabus. Don't worry about completing syllabus. Doing mocks well is way better than completing syllabus. Right? So there's no such, I've known lots of people who have not completed so-called syllabus, but have taken mocks really well and they've nailed this exam. Fine. So have a discipline around your mock schedule. If there is time pressure, if you said I'm going to prepare for 17 hours, 18 hours every week, about 7 to 8 hours is for mocks and 10 hours is for learning. And suppose you get only 12 hours, still take the mocks. After a point of time, especially into September, second half of September, the last 2 months before the exam, mocks take precedence over everything else. Your discipline, mocks, analysis, understanding of your strengths and weaknesses, clarity over your strategy, planning, all that become more important than knowing the proof for alternate segment theorem or doing the 14th question in a tournament puzzle or finding remainder of 17 per 95 when it is divided by 1004. And those things don't matter. Focus on core strengths, know how you will play rather than worrying about how everything else operates. And so don't sacrifice even the learning part, don't sacrifice mocks. Topic wise mocks or full length mocks. Topic wise mocks don't count. You're doing either to pad up your mock count or you're doing it because you want to uh, just just focus on one thing on that day. It doesn't count as a mock. You take quant in the morning, DLR in the afternoon, verbal in the evening. It does not count for a mock. For all practical purposes, topic wise mocks and mocks have nothing to do with each other. You can say I need more practice with DALR, therefore I'm going to do more DALR sets. DALR section test is my route to doing that. That is fine, but it's not a mock. Mocks are about 3 hours. What you do in the 160th minute, you will realize the kind of mistakes you make in the 160th minute only when you have sat through for 160 minutes. You cannot imagine that. So 3 hours of 3 1 hour tests back to back at high intensity is very different from taking 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. Don't do topic wise test except if you have lots of time and you want to have some fun. Otherwise, topic wise tests are more or less useless. Section tests are good where you just get some practice in, but they're not mocks. They're not mocks. Keep that in mind. Right? Analysis when you should do as much as possible immediately after the mock or reasonably quickly. That's when your decision making memory is still there. You'll be able to recall why you went for the question, why you marked that choice. Otherwise, the discipline goes away, especially for reading comprehension. And so you look at the answer choice, you will see that you have marked B, and the answer choice says C, and you'll see that C is the right answer, and you'll have no idea why you marked B because you've forgotten your thought process. Fine. So you keep the mock analysis, if possible, on the same day, or worst comes to worst, the subsequent day. Not much more than that. Fine. Which provider is good? I'm not going to comment on any other provider. The big three, the Time, Career Launcher, IMS, all three have upped their game, and they're about 4 or 5 years ago they used to be too difficult. Now they're all more or less in keeping with what CAT is. Take at least 2 providers. And 2 IM, Time, Career Launcher, IMS, it doesn't matter, but take 2 providers. Make sure that you have 2 providers with whom you do mocks with. Some people say that they only did mocks and then that provided everything that they needed. Definitely. If there's only one thing that you can do, make sure you do mocks. What else is there? We just have a look at the questions that are there. Right, so I just have 1 or 2 other things that I wanted to share. I'm just going to look at what else is there in the question pool, and then we'll jump in there. With mock percentiles, how much can I expect in the actual exam? It's not heavy duty correlation, but if you're generally doing well in mocks, the chances are you'll do well in exam. So don't get married to one provider. So you get conditioned to one style of questions. You stand conditioned to one type of traps, one way of thinking, one level of difficulty, and that is bad. Right? So make sure that you mix up your mocks. That is very vital. Right? Final thing in the mock, we have spoken for a long time about strategy. I'm sure everybody is going to give you inputs about question selection, revision, analysis, speed, intensity, overall strategy, 10,000 feet view, all of that. And so I've seen people getting muddled because of this. And so whenever you're working in the exam, you need to the best way to relax yourself is to jump in and go bang, 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 bang. And so when you're actually doing a mock, This exam is 3 exams of 1 hour each. My ground rule when I'm going, I have clear predetermined rules for leaving questions and selecting questions. Fine, but in each section till about 40 to 43 minutes, I don't pause to take stock. I don't. For the first 2/3 of that 1 hour, I'm just going bang, 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 bang. I'll leave questions which I hate. I'll skip questions. I'll recalibrate to know how difficult the paper is. But all that I'm doing subconsciously. I won't pause for a second to gather my thoughts and say, how am I doing? Is this going well? How many should I do? What is my strategy now? Are there going to be more questions from geometry? How many in arithmetic have gone by? Is this DI or LR? Are there going to be more parajumble questions? None of those things matter. All of those kind of processing happen in the last I'll pause at the 43 44th minute and say, okay, how is this section, what is the level of this paper? But you don't pause at the cost of answering beforehand. And so my favorite example as in terms of cricket for this is Virendra Sehwag. Okay, he's brilliant. He has a strategy which can be boiled down to see ball, hit ball. He's batting track agnostic. He's bowler agnostic. You could be Dale Steyn or Monty Panesar. If it's an easy ball, he'll hit it. So he's not going to be conditioned by what people say about the track or what people say about the bowler when he's going in. Apparently, the other player who's like this is I don't know if you've heard his name, is Vivian Richards. Apparently, every batsman would come back and give thoughts about the pitch and the ground after they got dismissed. Richards, he would never listen to all this. He'll say, look, I don't want your input of how the track is. I'm going to go in thinking it's easy to bat. I don't care about somebody saying it's tough to bat on. Before you realize it is tough, before the bowler realizes it is a good place to bowl on, you might rattle off and hit a bunch of boundaries. So at the start of your paper, you should go bang, 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 bang. No pause, no drop, no analysis, no strategy, no thinking, no agonizing, no detail, none of that. If the first 1 hour of that section, 45 minutes should go bang, 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 bang. Then pause for a minute, gather your thoughts, recalibrate, and jump in for the last few. And that absolute, the only thing that will relax you very well is answering a bunch of questions really quickly at the top of your game. All your preparation is for that. So don't muddle yourself in the mock, in the exam with all this chatter of strategy. Second, question selection. Fine. So there are two extreme ideologies. One is to do one question at a time and solve everything. Other is I'll analyze the entire paper, mark down questions that I want to attempt, and then attempt. Both are foolhardy. Fine. Don't go for either one. If you say I'm going to answer one question at a time, you'll get suckered into very difficult questions. Fine, and you might lose a bunch of freebies right at the end. If you say I'm going to write down the whole paper and then mark down questions I want to attempt, then you'll attempt the first question after say 8 or 9 minutes. You might have marked it as easy. It may take you 4 minutes and you might realize it's a tough question. So you're down nearly 1/4 of the paper and you have not marked a single answer. The only thing that is the bazooka in making you relaxed inside the exam is confidently marking an answer as C or B or A. So you should give yourself every chance to do that very early. Fine. So you should go there, look at a question, easy, bang, get it done. Tough, leave it. Go to the next one, easy, get it done. Suppose you answer 4 questions in the first 7 minutes and you're confident that all 4 are right. You're 4 questions to the good. And then your mind starts functioning, your body starts moving, you're back to your normal, your decision making becomes better. So don't put pressure on yourself by either going sequentially slowly or going through the entire paper, marking easy questions and then going. Question selection has got to be dynamic. You start batting on a track and then you suddenly say this looks like a 270 track and not a 330 track and not a 210 track. 260 will be good enough, but you get better and better information the first 10 overs. Sometimes it could be a 250 track and you could be 70 for no loss in 8 overs because you have not really processed how difficult it is, which is brilliant. You should aim to be that. Go berserk when you start a section. Don't process so many things in the background. When all the strategy talk gives you a 10,000 feet view. Very often, I've seen this cloud the per question view. And very important. So the best batsmen, the best players, they're evaluating each delivery on a delivery to delivery basis. And they're scheming and plotting a chase and a target setting idea. They think about which bowler to bash up, which way to manipulate strike, which part of the field to target, all of that. But at the ball level, at each delivery level, they're bringing their entire instinct to play for that delivery. And so for each question you need to be switched on and go berserk intensely. At an overall level you need to be savvy, so you need to find that balance. Don't get carried away by all the strategy talk just because some guy sitting in somewhere is giving you this input saying, look, do this, do that. You and lose your instinct of going bang 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 and solving questions. Nothing relaxes by answering questions. And remember that. Fine. I'm going to go back. I think I'm pretty much done with a bunch of things that I wanted to share and say. I'm going to scroll through and find questions that do that. How to avoid falling into a trap in DALR sets. My thumb rule for leaving questions: when in doubt, leave. When in doubt, leave. So I find that there are too many charts, I leave. I find that 4 minutes I'm not going anywhere, leave. I find that I've not got the hang of it, I just don't know the starting step, leave. So in stock trading, there's an idea called a stop loss, which is, look, I think this stock will go up. I bought it at 70 rupees, but if it goes below 67, I don't care. My thesis is not working. I'll take the loss and leave it. It's very useful to have a good defining stop loss for DILR. I'm going to try this set, but at 3 minutes, I've not got the hang of it. I'm already 3 minutes down. Goodbye. I'm not getting suckered in to deep go longer, because for DILR sometimes particularly tricky, because every moment you'll feel like one more minute and I'll get everything right. But your mind is conditioned to thinking like that. So jump out. So if you say 3 minutes and I've not got the grasp of it, leave that. Fine. XAT questions I'm staying out of. Because we still have a lot of time for XAT. We'll finish CAT. For XAT is business decision making and GK at the end of it. Not rocket science. You have a good strategy for CAT. You have a good strategy for XAT. When to give CAT level mock? Today. Not today, maybe it's late, but this week. Don't wait to complete syllabus. Don't wait to complete syllabus. Low score demotivates. Low score demotivates only when you have bhayankar expectation. The only thing that you should be demanding from yourself for the first few mock when you have not completed syllabus is intensity. I am going to say I will hang in there for 3 hours without sagging. I will not have diversion. I will not give up during the exam. I will not switch off en route to completion. I will not dump after a section. That's the only demand you should be placing on yourself for the first few mocks. You have that demand and put pressure on yourself to deliver that. Then you're good. Don't have this expectation. Your first mock to your last mock, the score could more than double. Last mock to the exam, you could go up another 40%. If you have the basics, if you get the hang of the exam in place, you can ramp it up from there, because the exams are usually easier than a bunch of mocks that you've taken. Fine. So your first few mock scores mean nothing. They mean nothing. It takes 4 mocks to get the hang of this. And so don't keep pushing this mock taking thing to October. I've seen so many students who take 5, 6, 7 mocks and it all falls in place. And then they take CAT and then they feel like this exam is actually so easy. If I'd taken just 5, 6 more mocks, I would have been on fire here. That's a feeling of bhayankar regret to have. And so don't put yourself in that position. Don't be that person who's pushing this mock so late that you go to CAT and feel like that's also another mock. And so don't do that. I'm afraid of mocks. I'm not comfortable in sitting for 3 hours. Look, jump in. There is just like ripping off a bandage. The more analysis and thinking you do, the more inertia will build up. Your act of mock taking has to be practically, it has to become trivial. Yeah, I have to take a mock now. Give me 5 minutes. I'll take a mock. Guy whom we learned with, he used to be very, very anal about this. He said, dudes, if you're serious about this exam, you should take a mock with about a 3-minute window to condition your brain. Then on the day of the exam, you can wear your favorite vest and favorite t-shirt worn from this side and that angle and all that. But when you're doing the mock, Day one, if I drop in and come into your room and I say, look, mock now, you should say, I'll drink some water and I'm ready to go. So de-emphasize the act of mock taking to that extent, but don't sacrifice intensity. The only thing that you need to demand of yourself, especially for the first 4 or 5 mocks, is that during those 3 hours, you'll be freakishly intense. That's all that matters, nothing else. What if VARC sections are the options are very close? They will be. Spend some time resolving the 1 and 2s. There's separate videos on how to resolve 1 and 2s. What should you do first, RC or VA? You should not start an RC set with less than 10 minutes to go. That's my thumb rule. Fine. So because reading a passage takes 5-6 minutes, and then you take 1 minute each for answering questions. So if you're going to take 9 minutes for attempting an RC passage, for the first 6 minutes you've got 0 marks. Remember that. Fine. So if you start reading a passage at the 52nd minute, then you want to read quicker. You'll make mistakes. You'll gloss over detail, get something wrong. Don't start an RC. Therefore, you should have questions to jump back in. This brings us to the next idea. What should you be doing in the last 3-4 minutes in each section? You should have marked out a question, which is your grit question, where you have to solve, multiply, divide, get to the equation, find the quadratic roots, eliminate one root, find the other answer. So topic like speed, time, distance, quadratic equation, pipes and cisterns, parajumble, that kind of question, where finding a sweet spot is not that important, but being very diligent and proper is very important. So if you're in the last 4 minutes, you should not sit and evaluate. There's a tendency in the mind to say, how well have I done? How difficult is this paper? None of that matters. So usually I have a set of questions to jump back into. I'll mark that question number. I'll have one eye on the timer. If I have 4 minutes to go and I've just finished a question, I will not stop for a second. I'll jump to question number 23, 27, 31 if I have time. That's what I'm going to. I know that. I've written that question number. I won't stop for 2 seconds to process and figure out and go through my paper and see what is my missing question, which is my easier mark. None of that. None of that matters. You don't have time for that. Just jump into one question. You get that bonus. You have one more time, one more bonus. Don't have slack. Don't waste time thinking and analyzing and selecting and processing in the last 5-6 minutes, because your brain sometimes shuts down 4 minutes before the section is over. This happens especially if you're doing well. So you're on fire. You never thought you'll go to question number 34. You've gone. You've left only 11 questions. Other 23, you're confident. You've done 55 minutes and 23 questions. You're feeling really good. And you feel like, yeah, good. Maybe 11, I'll get 3-4 more also. Let me see what is happening. Oh, this is also easy, but I think something else is easy. You do that. You have only 1 minute remaining. You do nothing in the last 5 minutes. That's a shame. Paper analysis inside the exam is useless. And nobody cares whether you remember how many questions were from geometry. Very often I finish CAT and I really not know how many were in each section, because I spent all my energy in just going berserk, that I don't have the bandwidth to recall and analyze. I'll be damned if I spend even 5% of my brain doing that inside the exam hall. Fine. So have a set of questions that you'll jump into in the last 4 minutes in each section. Just jump in and go. Can we get a video on how you attempt mock? This is that video. Or how I attempt mock. There's a video on YouTube which is a 3-hour live mock session. So you can probably go through that. Can we shift through sections in CAT? You cannot. You're taking 3 1-hour exams. How to improve accuracy in reading comprehension, which is there. There's a separate video for that. Go through that. We'll give you the link somewhere. IMS or time, which mock is better? I'm not venturing and answering that. Take a free mock, try out which one works for you. I know that the time, IMS and career launcher, all 3 have done a decent job in processing that. What is to be done between mocks? Revise, revisit, analyze. So when you're analyzing mocks, make sure that you fill learning gaps. Recharge yourself, drink lots of water, be healthy, be fine. You should feel good when you're taking mocks, but the bar for taking mocks should be very low. How to tackle exam pressure? De-emphasize result. There's nothing that works like de-emphasizing result. So don't have everything riding on a 3-hour exam. It's crazy to take that kind of risk, de-emphasize the result, and feel good and say, look, 3 hours, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be very intense, throw everything into the next 3 hours. High energy, high intensity, no slack, fun. Those are kind of languages, words that you need to be thinking about, that you need to have when you're jumping in for mocks. What should be the minimum time between two mocks? Never back to back, never on, avoid even consecutive days, because you'll get tired. i've I, I've taken back to back mocks once or twice in my life for the heck of it, so do that for the heck of it, but not on consecutive days. That doesn't work. You'll get tired. At best, alternate days. DALR, you started a set and completed half of it, spent around 8 or more minutes, have a stop loss, dump it. And so, what to do between mocks? That seems to be a question that's come in there. Rest, learning gap, filling that, analysis. That's what goes in. I would strongly recommend against rapidly increasing the mock count. No back to back mocks, no mocks on consecutive days. Lots of rest between mocks. Lots of time to recoup. Learning some amount of filling the learning gap. I like the idea of going back to absolute basics every now and then in between my mock schedule. So I'll go and read up interesting proofs of Pythagoras theorem, proofs for theorems in geometry, some new idea from some Olympiad type questions, a bunch of interesting articles on cricket and football. So I will recharge from absolute ground up. I want that because that makes my mind fresher. That's very important. I'm going to sign off from here. The top 3-4 mock providers are good. Take any of them. 2IM will also have a mock series starting from the say 7 or 8 days from now. We do very few mocks, but we spend a lot of time in solving them and analyzing them, and giving video solutions for a bunch of them, and giving the mock experience for them. For us, a great part of our course is about the teaching value and the pedagogy value, and not the quantity aspect of it. And mocks will stick to that. And best wishes. Take a mock as quickly as possible. Hang in there in every single mock, and be disciplined about your overall mock strategy. Happy cracking. Cheers, guys. Best wishes.